Chica. So I came on today to talk about how to go about losing a small chunk of weight without the HCG diet. Perhaps you've lost 50 or 60 pounds, you're maintaining fairly well overall, but, a certain life circumstance, whether it was, too many parties or a vacation or even maybe an emotional trauma in your life, those types of things can sometimes catch up with us, right? So in those cases, do we always have to go back onto HCG? In my opinion, no. In the past, like you have probably thought, I have thought to myself when I saw the scale go up a little bit, oh my goodness, I have to do a round of HCG. And, it's natural to think that way because that's the way that we have successfully lost weight. However, when you have a small amount of weight to lose, say just, 5 to 8 pounds, it's really worth thinking about trying to lose it on your own. And I'm going to give you 5 different correction methods that you can use. You can even combine some of them or alternate them. And most of them I have used myself and successfully lost weight with them and maintained more easily with them. So I want to share them with you. Now, just my own opinion for myself. After knowing what I know now, I've lost about 6 to 7 pounds on my own this past summer through some of these methods. And I kind of feel that now I have kind of like a 5 to 8 pound cushion. Thankfully, I'm maintaining very well right now. I'm not up at all, but if I were to gain anywhere between 5 and 8 pounds, I would attempt to lose it on my own first. Anything more than 8 pounds, I would probably do another round of HCG. So if you're, 8 pounds or more above, HCG really is just so efficient at getting off any larger chunks. And also there's that body reshaping thing that, I wouldn't knock that. So, in that case, I probably would do another round. And if that's the case for you, I do have recommendations on my blog, hCGChica.com, that has my review on the places that you can buy HCG from reputable places. So you can check that out. But say you're in that range, 3, 5, 8 pounds that you've gained and you'd like to go about losing it, but you don't want to have to go through all the rigmarole of doing a round of HCG and then phase 3 and all that stuff. So the 5 things that I'm going to detail today are phase 3 eating. That's kind of always the first line of defense, but we'll talk about that. Trying to eliminate dairy as an option, eliminating nuts, intermittent fasting, and eating to hunger. So those are the 5 things that I'm going to go into detail on about what they do, why they can be effective, stuff like that. So the first thing that I think it's important to do is not to panic. Because when you panic, then you make emotional decisions that are often not in your best interests. And maybe it's kind of asking too much to say not to panic because I've done it myself. So maybe a better way to put it is, panic, but then stop yourself before you actually make any decisions. And the reason I talk about this is because I've been in the same boat before, where you suddenly have gained 5 pounds and you just instantly think, oh my gosh, I have to do another round of HCG and I have to order it right now and I can't stand being 5 pounds more. So I've thought that to myself more than once in the past few years. So I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of you HCGers out there have thought the same thing when in a similar scenario. But after giving it some thought, knowing how difficult HCG really is, it's quite a bit of a focus and time commitment. If it can be avoided, that's a good thing, right? So I have been able to try out different methods of maintaining a balance with my weight over the past couple years, and some of them have worked. Actually, the ones I'm going to detail have all worked. So I want to share those with you today, and that will hopefully help you have a plan so that you can stop that panic mode and make a plan. So after you do your panic thing, hopefully just for a few minutes or a day or two, then you have to step back and think rationally. For me, that involves thinking about what is it that I'm fearing, what's causing this anxiety inside. So what is the actual fear? I'm going to tell you the ones that have run through my mind in the past. There's actually 4. One of them is the fear that I wouldn't be able to lose the weight. Yes, now that, once you have HCG, you know that that's there, but there's just still that fear that it will be very hard to lose the weight. The second one is the fear of continuing to gain weight back. Also, what's run through my mind is feeling like I wouldn't have the self-control to change whatever I needed to change in order to make that 5-pound correction. And the last thing is actually the fear that the 5 pounds that I had gained meant that I would kind of automatically continue spiraling out of control until I was, back where I had started, 30 to 50 pounds higher. I think that's the ultimate fear. You see that small amount and all of a sudden your mind takes you to the end of the road where you began, and that's a very scary thought, because you knew how unhappy you were there, and also how hard you worked to get from there to here. So the problem with these types of fears and the emotions that it causes is that it's very debilitating. And actually for me, it would create a scenario where I would actually turn to eating in my despair over feeling like I had ruined something. And honestly, it just doesn't make sense, does it? And yet we all do it. So what we have to do is realize that does not make sense. Doesn't make sense. Stop thinking like that. And you have to consciously adjust your thinking. And I actually just made a video about this last week. I'll link to it in the article. It's all about kind of accepting more who you are, the things that really matter, and that weight is a bit of a side thing that, yes, at some point we may need to address, we may want to address, but we need to keep it in its proper place. So we have to consciously choose to think about, the poor food choices we make, or how much we ate, like how much it was too much, all of those things. We have to choose to think about it differently. And it feels very uncomfortable at first. It feels out of your element because you have a different well-worn path in your brain that you're used to doing. Even though it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel good to feel crappy and to feel, guilty and bad. It's what you're comfortable with, in a sense. It's what you're used to doing. So it feels very odd, like you're giving yourself too much freedom or too much permission to not think of it like that. But you really have to do that. Instead of thinking all those things, what you need to do is make a plan. So you need to forget the past entirely. The only reason it matters at all is how it affects what you choose to do for the next, couple weeks and beyond. That's the only reason that you think of it at all, is that it has a bearing on what you're now going to do. So instead of feeling negative and guilty, we're going to make some plans. Make some plans for making some corrections and adjustments to fix it. It's important to remember too, when you're creating a plan, keep in mind, it doesn't have to last forever. I think that that's something that can feel overwhelming to a person when they're thinking about making a correction to help their weight, is the idea that it's going to take a long time, or that it's going to feel, be like forever. And in that case, we start feeling like, we've started this new period of dieting again. And it's kind of a hard thing sometimes to stomach. Honestly, with these correction methods, you often don't have to do them for long periods of time. Sometimes they're just short periods of time, and what you can sometimes do is also do a few days, take a break, eat more normally, and then do a few more days. You can break it up as well. When you try those different techniques, what I find anyway is that it makes these correction methods and getting your weight back down, it makes it fit more seamlessly into your life in a way that you don't really notice it. Whereas if you have to do a certain thing every day for 2 months, it can really start to feel, like a drudge, and like it's like you're aware of it every day because you're constantly being restricted. However, when you divide it up or just do a day here and there or a few days here and there of different things, I find that I almost don't notice it. One of the most important things that it seems like needs to be in place is something structured. When you don't have something structured in place, it kind of becomes all too easy to, just grab a handful of whatever it is it's in front of you, or as you walk by at the office or whatever, because you don't have a plan in place. However, when you have something structured that you've set up in advance for that day or for the next few days, it's much easier to not just grab whatever, because it may, if it doesn't fit within whatever plan that you've made, it's a lot easier to pass that up, because you have your plan and you know that plan is just for a set period of time. And so that makes it easier to stay away from whatever it was, chocolate M&Ms or whatever for that day or the next few days. So the first correction method that you can try is actually the one that most HCGers turn to first, which is eating phase 3 style. Just going back to the basics, no sugar, no starches. For me, that actually means even no fruit. Sometimes I might include small amounts of like low sugar berries in phase 3 smoothies, which I'll actually give you guys a couple links to some phase 3 smoothies in this article. So that might be all that I do for fruit. And you can make a plan to do it for, say 7 days or 10 days. And, and then you'll kind of reassess where you're at the end of that period. I do want to mention here though that eating low carb for an extended period of time, there's been quite a few articles now, I think there might even be some books, just how that can affect women's hormones in a negative way over time. So it's something to keep in mind. If you're just doing it for, short periods of time, it's not a big deal. Some people do live perpetually on a low carb diet, because they have said that there's no other way for them to maintain weight loss, and that very well may be the case. But I'm going to actually talk about that. There's a few other, basically there's some surprising outcomes that have happened in my life recently when trying different things by like adding food groups and removing other food groups, and the outcome was actually surprising. So I hope you'll keep watching, because it is true that just perpetually being low carb over time can cause some problems for hormones for women, and that can actually in turn make it more difficult to maintain weight loss. Go figure, So unfortunately, that can sometimes happen. But phase 3 has been a very good line of defense for kind of getting your weight back under control, getting back to clean eating. That can really be useful sometimes. So Bonnie, I wanted you to share your experience with, kind of bringing your weight back into range after being stabilized for a while, but then maybe having it go up a little. Tell me what happened and what you did about it.
Okay. Well, first, it's been about a year since I've ended my HCG journey.
Gotcha.
And just a quick recap, I got down to about 122.
Okay.
And then really I kind of bounced up to 125 to 129 pound range.
Gotcha.
And that's where I feel comfortable and my clothes fit fine.
Great.
Then the other thing is I wanted to mention to you is about 6 months after that, I had gained a little weight by probably eating outside of hunger,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I actually went on another round and got myself back down to 122. I probably gained around 10 pounds, um, and I got myself back to about 122 pounds. But then again, I I stabilized more in the 125, 129 pound range.
And that's actually real quick. I wanted to say that's kind of a nice point for people to hear too. Sometimes
Yeah.
a lot of us can initially get down to a fairly low weight, but it sometimes is not reasonable to maintain it. And I had the same experience.
Yeah.
So some of us do find a comfortable weight range just a little higher, which is totally fine. So continue.
Hormonally, I feel better in that range than
Yeah.
higher. And again, like my clothes start not fitting if I get too much higher too.
Sure.
So that was about a year ago. Like I said, was when I ended my journey, and in 6 months, I had the little issue of probably eating outside of hunger.
Yeah.
I didn't go back into the diet mentality. I wasn't being a glutton, but
No.
I outside of
Sure.
I did eat outside of hunger.
Thank you.
And now we're a year out, and I kind of got myself into the same position where I ate a little outside of hunger
Sure.
and gained, no more than 10 pounds, probably 7-ish pounds.
Yeah.
And then I saw your post, and I'm like, well, maybe let me give P3 a try and just really get really tight on the hunger scale,
Yeah.
really kind of get in tune with the hunger rhythms again, like, because obviously I wasn't.
Yeah.
And within a couple of weeks, the weight came right off.
Wow.
And
So about how many pounds came down?
I would say I was probably up around 7 plus or minus 2 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, it varies from day to day, but so you lost about 5 to 7 pounds, just kind of tightening things up.
The first week, it came 5 pounds came off.
Wow.
I was really strict. I got myself into ketosis, and
Okay.
and then within a couple of weeks, I managed to get myself back down.
Great. Now, when you say you went back to a stricter P3, what does that mean for you? Like, what foods do you eat and what foods don't you eat?
Okay, I eat, I definitely eat fat, but I eat the good fat. Um, what I consider a bad fat is like a vegetable oil or the trans fat. Like I'll eat butter. Butter is a good fat, and
Sure.
coconut oil.
Yeah.
Um, and then protein or vegetable. Typically, I don't eat a lot of fruit,
Hmm.
so mostly fats, whole fats, proteins, and vegetables.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good. So
And some people no fruit anyway, so
yeah, so you kept the fruit out because that's a big one. Some people don't think of fruit as a starch or sugar, but it really technically is,
or yeah,
so
natural, but it's a sugar.
right. So you kept that out, and then you followed to hunger. That was the other key, right?
Yeah, and I really, really try to pay attention to my hunger rhythms and stick really close to really tight. So I didn't starve myself. I
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and my body remembered. And I didn't go back to 122.
Sure.
I'm back in the
In your
125.
comfy range.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what matters. That's really good. So would you say when you did that little transition and you started eating more closely to hunger again, were you eating quite a bit less than you were? Do you think or
yeah. I think so. I
gotcha.
think that I just enjoy the taste of something,
Oh
and
yeah, me too.
I would do it, but not by a lot, but enough
Yeah,
to.
sure, sure. And it's always kind of like I think it's a constant process. You're always checking yourself,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
do. I think once you get outside and get distracted, and then you get away from paying attention to those rhythms,
Yeah.
that's where you kind of get out of sync. But
Yeah.
I never beat myself up, and I
Good.
didn't go back to that diet mentality like I'll do a round.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what's important to like try to avoid because if you have lost a lot of weight, it is easy to catch. Like I don't weigh every single day anymore, but I weigh, here and there just to double check, like you. And then yeah, like if it gets too outside, then like, I can take some corrective measures, yeah, without having to go back to that. And you start realizing that you do have control, and that you don't have to, because I think what's scary, at least for what I used to think and probably what others struggle with sometimes, is like if I saw that happen, like go outside that comfortable window or feel like I would feel, oh my goodness, I've already failed. And
Right.
so, and then you kind of somehow just keep going along that path because you feel like, well, I failed anyway. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I've learned to not think that way. Like, oh, okay, so I've kind of maybe not listening to my body as well or making the best choices. I am now going to make the right choices for a few days or a week. And I know that my body will respond, and it's a good
And
feeling.
it is a good feeling to know that we have the correct answer, and it's a healthy way to look at it too. I
Yeah.
wanted to note too is when I was in the process of kind of eating outside of hunger,
Yeah.
I don't typically eat sugar,
Yeah.
uh, white sugar, because it just doesn't affect me right hormonally, and
Yeah.
then uh, and so I really eliminated it. But there was a couple of days that I had some sugar products,
Yeah.
and I noticed that not only did I feel worse hormonally,
Yeah.
but I would wake up first thing in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, out of a sleep, being hungry.
Oh,
It was
wow.
clear. And I never wake up hungry. I don't eat
Yeah.
until late morning.
That is so
So,
interesting.
yeah.
I've actually had the same experience happen, even not necessarily just with sugar, but if I were to have a really high carb meal at night, like
Mm-hmm.
just higher than average, yeah, I'll wake up like starving in the morning. But otherwise, that doesn't happen. So I think it's like a blood sugar thing, you
Yeah.
know. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me because I just want us to all, be encouraged, like even if we make mistakes here and there, because we're going to, we're not going to be perfect all the time, but
Exactly.
yeah, we don't always have to just go back on HCG every time. The second correction method is actually eliminating dairy. Now, I love cheese. I actually still miss cheese a little bit to this day. But I'm mentioning this because I had a pretty wild experience with removing dairy from my diet. It's been about three months, or maybe even 4 months now since I did that. And the reason that I suggest it is while I have maintained my weight fairly well, between all my breaks of HCG. You know, I first started HCG in 2011. All my breaks, you know, all that stuff, I maintained fairly well. I didn't realize though that it was still a little bit of a struggle to maintain my weight until I took dairy out. And all of a sudden maintaining my weight is, I would even go so far as to say, effortless. I eat much more freely now of carbs, and I don't gain weight at all. In fact, one surprising thing, which is why I'm mentioning it as a correction method as well, is because I lost about 5 pounds, 6 pounds without changing anything else. Actually, no, I did change something. I took out dairy and nuts at the same time. So I did take out both, but I took out dairy and 5 pounds on the scale went down probably over the period of just a couple weeks without really changing anything else aside from the nuts. You know, no calorie change. Obviously, I started eating more of other things, which did include carbs. So it was very surprising to lose 5 pounds taking out some of the low carb foods. And all of a sudden, you know, obviously I was eating more vegetables and meat, but I was also eating more carbs, whole fruits, potatoes, rice, organic corn, and my weight dropped still. And I got leaner too. It's like kind of like I lost some fat where I had started feeling a little bit bulky because you guys know I work out and do CrossFit, and I love being strong, but I don't really want to be thick. And so I was like, man, I wish I could get that lean look. And I'm actually starting to get that a little bit now. And that's what caused that change. So I'm not saying that this will happen for everyone who tries it, but you may be surprised. You might have a dairy sensitivity and not realize it. Like I said, when I ate slightly lower carb, I could eat dairy and kind of manage to maintain my weight, but it would still tend to creep up, and then I'd have to do other things, you know, to try to get it to go back down. Whereas now I feel like I don't have to do that kind of stuff. Sometimes I choose to in order to try to get more lean and more fit, but as far as actually just maintaining it, it really does feel effortless, and I think that was the key for me. Now, I wasn't really willing to take dairy out of my diet for a good couple years. I took gluten out of my diet already like 3 years ago. I took sugar out about 3 years ago, except for a couple little stints. So I did do that, but it took me a long time to try doing the dairy thing. I felt like, you know, I'm already not eating so many things. But I finally felt emotionally ready to try it. And again, you know, just think of it as a trial. None of these suggestions you have to do forever or even for a long time. You know, if you want to try taking out dairy, but you eat a lot of it, like when I took out dairy, I was using yogurt, the Fage yogurt, and cheese. It was a large part of my daily diet, you know. That's kind of what I would snack on all the time. And so it was a big change. It wasn't just like, oh, now I can't have, you know, my Parmesan cheese a couple times a week. It was like, okay, now I can't have 2 bowls of yogurt every day, and I can't have mozzarella balls every day, and I can't have other cheeses every day. I mean, I ate quite a bit of it. So it was a big adjustment, but I kept in my mind that, okay, this is just a trial, you know. If nothing changes, or it's too hard, or I don't feel like it's giving me any results after a couple weeks, I'll just add it back in, no biggie. And as it was like, wow, my weight's going down, and I'm not deprived. I'm eating other stuff I enjoy now. So because the result was so good, and my digestion improved, I decided to stick with it. So anyway, that might be another thing to try. And you could also do it in combination with phase 3 eating as well. That would obviously be more restrictive, because if you're not doing dairy and you're not really doing carbs, you're gonna have to eat a lot of vegetables, which I hope to be coming out with more and more vegetable recipes, just simple ones. I'm sure that they're already all over the internet, but for those of you who are already my viewers, and I do like making fun little videos, so I'm gonna definitely try to come out with more of those just to make it easy to eat more vegetables. One of my biggest challenges with eating more vegetables was just finding ways to make them quickly, you know, where it wasn't tons of work and makes tons of dishes. And if it's like that, I'm not gonna bother, which is why I don't bake much. I tried baking cookies with my son the other night, which I will do it for him, but I tried to make my own like alternative baked good, and it didn't even end up tasting good. But I was just like, oh, so much work and so many pots for what? Like I should have just eaten kale salad. So anyway, so that's something else that you can try. And I really think the dairy thing is worth trying. I think the paleo people have something there. The third correction method is actually trying to eliminate nuts. And that's another thing that we all tend to love. They're a great snack food. I remember on my 5th round of HCG, I was really craving cashews. I just couldn't, well, obviously you're not supposed to eat them on P2. I did cheat 1 or 2 days by eating them, but then after the round was over, I felt like I couldn't get enough of cashews. I don't know what it was, which I know cashews aren't technically in the nut family, but we kind of put them in there. Anyway, so nuts, almonds, walnuts, and I know these are all things that we often use in place of gluten and other higher carb flours or snacks. So, and for some of you, it may do very well. I'm just throwing it out as a suggestion because like I said, I removed both dairy and nuts at the same time, and I could already tell my digestion just wasn't the best, and I could tell when I ate those things, my body didn't love it. I could get away with it, but it didn't love it. So it's just, you never know. You could be surprised. You never know what you may be sensitive to until you try something different. And obviously, if you have another method that works for you, why change something that works well? But I did not know that it would be even easier to maintain my weight by making that change of no dairy, no nuts, and more carbs that my body does tolerate. And I think my body's healthier now. I think I have a healthier balance of carbs and protein and fat in my diet than I had before, and my body seems to like it. So it's just good to experiment, experiment and see how it feels, and you can always add it back in. The fourth method of correction is actually one of my favorites, which is to try a little intermittent fasting. I'm going to talk a little bit about it here. I'm not going to go into all the details about why it's so effective or why it is healthy, because you can get all of those details from an excellent book that I read on it a couple years ago by Brad Pilon. It's called Eat, Stop, Eat. I will have a link to it in the article. If you do consider fasting, I really encourage you to read through it. He cites tons of studies. There's just so much proof in there showing how healthy and effective it can be. So I'm not going to get into all that. But basically, we've been misled by the news media, by the newsstand fitness magazines, which I used to read tons of those back in the late 90s, to think that we have to eat 6 small meals every day, and that if we don't do that, we're going to go into starvation mode, or our body's going to hold on to fat and we're not going to lose weight, or if you go any length of time at all without eating, that you have an eating disorder. Eating disorders are real, of course. I used to have, for a period of time, a binge eating disorder myself. But intermittent fasting for health is entirely different. The author of the book, Eat, Stop, Eat, he's like a bodybuilder. He's totally ripped. Within that community, there is a lot of people who do intermittent fasting. It's also referred to as IF, as a way to lose body fat. Also, I'm not saying you should never eat 6 frequent meals a day or that it's a bad thing. Obviously, all of our bodies are unique, and the same body is going to go through changes as you age or as you go through different health crises. So you should definitely listen to your body. For people that have adrenal fatigue, it is recommended that you eat more frequently because your body is compromised, and when you don't eat, it stimulates some hormones in your adrenals. So if you have adrenal fatigue, that could be an unwise choice and make you worse, and you won't be able to heal as well. So definitely listen to your own body, and in certain cases it is good to eat more frequently. I'm just saying that that's not the only way by far that an average healthy person has to eat in order to lose weight or maintain weight. That is the myth, I think, that I used to think, that I no longer believe after everything that I've read and after everything I've personally experienced as well. So just to throw that out there, I was kind of brainwashed with that information. I remember in high school, I never ate breakfast. I was very fit. I worked out every day. I did eat healthy the rest of the day, and I used to read in magazines that if I didn't eat breakfast, my body was going to go into starvation mode and I was going to gain weight. And I've done some more research on it recently because I don't eat breakfast again now. I don't eat breakfast anymore again, and I'm very happy with it. I have my 2 cups of black tea, and that's perfect for me until later in the day. So I looked up some more info on that, and it appears now, after people have gone over those studies that claimed to prove that more people gained weight when they didn't eat breakfast, or didn't maintain weight loss as well when they didn't eat breakfast. And it actually appears that those studies were basically I don't want to say misread, but they weren't, basically the wrong information was gotten out of them. So I'll definitely give you guys some more info on that in the future, because I think it's actually pretty interesting. But anyway, the reason I even mention all this is because it was very outside the box for me when I first discovered the whole intermittent fasting thing. It was totally different from what I had heard about, and I was worried, like, oh my goodness, that's so unhealthy, that's like starving yourself, and I did think all that. And then after I read his book, I felt like a paper bag was taken off my head, and like, wow, I can't believe it, you know? And now I've been incorporating intermittent fasting for 2 years now, actually, and I don't do it every week, and I'm going to talk a little bit in a couple minutes here about exact ways that you can do it and how you can use it. What's so great about intermittent fasting is that it's so simple and so easy. It doesn't require lots of thought or time or calculating. Basically, if you do it Brad Pilon's way, you fast for 1 to 2 times a week, and you don't do it back to back. So you don't fast Monday and Tuesday. You separate it. So if you did it twice a week, for a couple weeks, you would do like Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Saturday. So you separate it, and you fast for 24 hours each time, 18 to 24 hours. His method's doing 24 hours. So for example, say you started a fast on Monday evening, maybe around 7 p.m. If you fast for 24 hours, your fast will end on Tuesday evening. That's 6 or 7 p.m. or something. So when you look at it that way, you're actually never going an entire day without food. You're always getting one meal, which is dinner. So you're always eating every day. Another one of the things that I love about fasting is that it makes me feel very clean, and it always makes me crave healthy food. Whenever I finish the end of a fast, I never crave junk food. The thing that I crave when I finish a fast is always like a hearty meal with like steak and broccoli and salad or something like that. So I think the fasting can be a really great way to fix cravings. I have never craved junk food at the end of a fast, never. All I ever want is like a real meal, and it's so satisfying. Additionally, I do think fasting can take a little bit of adjustment. I think my body's adjusted to it now, and it really feels good when I do it. I actually have more energy. And I get a lot done on the days that I do fast. And again, this is something that you don't have to start it and then commit to like, okay, I have to do this 2 days a week for the next 6 months. You don't have to do that. I literally just incorporate it now and then whenever I feel like I either, would like to try getting a little leaner, or when I feel like, oh, the scale's up a couple pounds, I'm gonna fast today because I'm busy anyway. And then maybe I'll try fasting in a few days, and then I see where I'm at, So it's, again, not one of those things that you have to do a certain amount of. He recommended for weight loss, 1 to 2 times a week. Another way to do fasting is to have a shorter fasting window and to do it more frequently. This is usually referred to as like the 16-8 protocol, where you, as a woman, you would fast 16 hours every day, and then you would eat your food for the day within an 8-hour window. So for example, if you eat until 9 or 10 p.m. one night, whatever, you had some popcorn at 9 o'clock, and then you start your fast. So from 9 o'clock, you would go forward about 16 hours, and I think that ends up being around like 1 p.m. or something. So then you would start eating the next day at 1 p.m., and then between 1 and 9, you eat your food for the day. So that's another way. And when you do it that way, that's more on a frequent basis, like even daily. And a lot of people do that. Actually, to be honest, that's kind of how I end up eating. I don't purposefully follow that plan. Sometimes I eat earlier in the day, but just because of how my life works out, and I feel good eating this way, I tend to not eat sometimes until 1 or 2, most days. The reason for that is because I like to work out at CrossFit fasted. I often don't go to CrossFit until noon. So because of that, by the time I get home, I often don't have my first meal until close to 2 o'clock. And then I'll eat from 2 p.m. the rest of the day until 11 or 12 at night sometimes. So, so I'm still eating for much of the day. It's just that I don't start eating until later. And for me, this has worked very well. I know that there are lots of reports and articles that will claim that this affects your metabolism in a negative way. I have not found that to be the case. I eat very freely. I get pretty full at night sometimes. I CrossFit, but it's only 3 to 4 hours a week. I do think it's made a big difference in my metabolism, but by combining the two, CrossFit and then this way of eating, I feel like maintaining my weight is effortless, in addition to the no dairy. So anyway, it's just a little food for thought. I do have an important note I want to mention though, if you do decide to fast, and that is, as with everything, balance and caution are in order. I am actually going to link to an article where there is some cause for concern for women who do both intermittent fasting and the paleo diet together, and how it actually can affect a woman's hormones in a negative way over time if done continually. So I would like for you guys to check that out. The author believes that humans evolved, which I don't believe that, but the core of the information about how it can affect a woman's body is really good food for thought that I do recommend you read. While I do fast from time to time and I do work out hard, when I do eat, I eat heartily with carbs. So anything that you take to extremes can take a toll on your body, right? Even HCG, as much as I love it, I would do it again in a heartbeat if I had 20 pounds to lose. But we only do that for 3 to 6 weeks, right? Would it be healthy to be on HCG for like months and months at a time? No, you know? So the same thing here. If you combine too many different correction methods and do them all for a long period of time, that could be too taxing on your body, and then you can start having trouble. You know, your body can start fighting you because it's not getting what it needs. I've been doing intermittent fasting and CrossFit, both of them now, for 2 years. So that's why I do feel confident that not only has it not harmed my health, but it has actually improved it. But I think the reason that it's done that is because I have counterbalanced that with eating more heartily, eating carbs, stuff like that, the ones my body tolerates at other times. So for me, I feel like that's created a happy balance. It feels like with all of these different techniques, you know, when you're doing some type of correction method, you're kind of asking something from your body, right? And I feel like when you balance that by, you know, eating some carbs or whatever, you know, giving something, making sure you eat enough, whatever the case is. You wouldn't want to fast every day for days on end for months. You know, you would waste away. You know, you would lose a lot of muscle. So you want to balance it all out. And I think if you ask something of your body and then you balance it out by giving something to it, making sure that it has the nutrition, it has the protein, or, you know, whatever, I feel like that creates a balance so that the fasting or the low carb or whatever ends up being okay, and being healthy, in fact, as long as you keep it balanced. So even if you do all of this, it's very possible that intermittent fasting is not good for your body. And if that's the case, you know, certainly don't do it. I don't want to recommend anything that's going to hurt anybody. For me, I've found it to be a really good tool that I don't have to think about. You know, I just incorporate it here and there. I get a lot done on those days because I don't have to prepare food or eat it or feel a little sleepy after eating it. And I get so much done. Mostly the days that I fast are when I am working on HCG videos and articles for you guys. That keeps me very focused and distracted, and so the day just flies by. But anyway, that's probably the most effective outside of the no dairy for me, for creating a balance and for keeping that clean feeling inside where I crave good food. The last correction method is eating to hunger. To be honest, I don't really follow this method of eating to hunger. While I don't stuff myself, I do get fuller at some meals, and then other times I don't eat for several hours. But there are a lot of people who swear by this method as being very effective, and I do think it's a great tool to use. It's just balanced eating. You know, it's a balanced approach to eating, and you really can't go wrong, you know, trying it. Basically, if you're eating in this manner, you're letting your body be your guide as to how much you eat at any given time. And there's really no point in me going into all the details about it, because someone else, the creator of the hunger scale, she calls it the hunger scale, is Robin Woodall, and she has a book all about it. It's excellent. I'm going to put a link to the book in my article. It is called, I always remember the first part but not the second half. It's Weight Loss Apocalypse, Emotional Eating Rehab Through the HCG Protocol. I highly recommend her book. It has helped a lot of women doing this protocol, especially women with eating disorders and things like that. So why try something different, you know? We've been conditioned to think that only low carb can bring about quick weight loss results, aside from the HCG diet, of course. And, you know, yes, it can be effective. It is a good tool. But my recent experience with taking out dairy and nuts while still eating a normal amount of carbs made me realize that, you know, we might need to think more out of the box here and attempt some different things, especially if some of the things we have been trying are not working as well as they used to, or we're not finding it to be sustainable. I have had several reports now of women who say they either gradually gain weight after HCG and there's kind of almost nothing they can do to stop it, or that the only way for them to maintain weight loss is to eat low carb, and that every time they try incorporating even, you know, small amounts of starches, their weight just automatically goes up. And, you know, there could be a myriad of reasons for that. Like I said, if your hormone levels get off, that can really affect your ability to maintain weight loss. You know, thyroid stuff, adrenal stuff, all of that. But it is also tied up with how we eat. And like I mentioned, there's these articles discussing concerns over chronic low carb eaters and how it can affect your hormones. So anyway, I've just kind of wondered if some of these other methods could be part of the missing pieces that could maybe help some of these women to do something different, that maybe it would help. You know, eating more carbs and taking out dairy and nuts, as I've done. I'm not going overboard with the carbs. I'm not suggesting you eat loaves of bread. You know, we've already been there on the whole low-fat, high-carb diet thing back in the day, but just eating a reasonable amount, enough so that your body has the stuff it would usually use to do its daily duties without being strained. So anyway, I'm just kind of curious if those types of changes could possibly help with that. I don't know. So I'm just throwing it out there. You know, because I just was so surprised. I did not expect to lose weight and for my weight to be so easy to maintain when I made this change. I had no idea, and I'm still like, wow, I just can't believe it's so easy now. In the end, we're each unique, and you need to try things out and figure out what your body responds well to, what it doesn't. A lot of people are on the paleo train right now, and I eat very close to paleo, but not completely. And the reason for that is because paleo people, they eat nuts. And they don't eat grain. Now, I know 100% that my body does not tolerate nuts well, so I don't eat nuts, and I do feel fine with things like rice and even a little organic corn. So see, I took out the nuts and I have added a little bit of grain. And for me, I find that to be very balanced. I have no problem staying lean, and I feel good. So sometimes you have to, you know, take the shell of something that seems to be good and try it out, and then maybe make alterations to it to find the perfect little solution for you. And that may even change as time goes on as well. Another long video completed. Yay. I thought about dividing this one up into 5 parts, but I feel like that's going to be even more confusing. So I elected to keep it all together in one nice little package. You can always pause it or skip it forward. But anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. So again, the 5 different correction methods were eat phase 3, take out dairy, eliminate nuts, try some intermittent fasting, and eat to hunger. And again, I want to caution you guys, we're all different, and some of you are almost over responsible and might take it too far, maybe trying to do too many of the correction methods at the same time for too long. And I really do feel in that case that you can tax your body too much and it will fight you. So I just say that because I care about you guys, and I know you're trying to do the best thing for your body, but sometimes we can inadvertently cause problems by being too responsible. So, try a couple of them out, try combining them or alternating them. Like I said, when I fast, I'll do it like a couple days, but not back to back. Monday, Thursday, or Monday, Friday. And I don't do it every week. If I was purposefully trying to lose 8 pounds on my own, I might do it purposefully, for a few weeks and see where I'm at. The no dairy thing for me at the moment has been good because my body doesn't tolerate dairy well, and I feel that. If you're a person who tolerates it well, you might try taking it out just for a few weeks, and you might try adding it back in and seeing what happens. Because I do think that there is good nutrition in dairy. It's just that my body doesn't tolerate it well. It's just like my son. He's actually allergic to most fruits, and it's very frustrating for me because I want to feed him healthy food, but a lot of the time he ends up being more allergic to peaches and grapefruit and other healthy fruits than he is to granola bars. It's just so weird, but I have to work with, the reaction that I get out of his body. So it's not that any of these food groups is bad. I don't believe that. I just believe that, our bodies are unique, and you may not know that there's a certain sensitivity that you have. And maybe the sensitivity won't last forever either, but maybe you have one right now, and by removing that, you may experience a good result. So, for what it's worth. Anyway, you can find me on Facebook, HCGChica. I'm on Instagram, HCGChica, Twitter, HCGChica. You can't really find me on Google+. They keep banning me, so don't bother there. But anyway, you can find me in all those other places, and I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!